You're listening to the Every Student, Every Day podcast with me, Jim Franchini, Superintendent of the Averill Park Central School District. Welcome to this episode of the Every Student, Every Day podcast. Excited for this episode to be welcoming to the podcast our current and future school resource officer. As some of you may have heard, Deputy Nikles has received a promotion within the department and will be moving on out of this role. And Deputy Mahar will be joining Averill Park in the capacity of school resource officer. We are very excited about welcoming him and are very excited for Brian in his new role. The program, for those who don't know, has been here in Averill Park. We're in our 9th year, actually. One of the first schools in the county to have a school resource officer. And we have built what we believe is a very strong, very positive program here. Very strong relationship with the Rensselaer County Sheriff's Office. Very successful program led by Brian, and we really feel like it's had an unbelievable impact on our students and our staff throughout the time that Brian has been here. So he'll be sorely missed. But again, congratulations to Brian and welcome to Dan. So if you guys would like to just introduce yourselves and say hi to our listeners.
Sergeant Brian Nikles. I've been the school resource officer for the last 9 years and looking forward to moving on with my career and working with Deputy Mahar as he steps into the role of school resource officer.
I am Deputy Dan Mahar. I just want to make note that Sergeant Nikles, he really enjoyed dropping that sergeant line. I think that might have been the first time he's done that. So everybody gets to hear it first, Sergeant Nikles.
That's right. I did call you Deputy Nikles. It takes a while for that to change. A little muscle memory there. So Brian, starting with you, getting right into it, you kind of said here, you started the program here in Averill Park. When you look back at your time as our SRO, what stands out at you the most? Is there a grade level, an event, an interaction that you particularly enjoyed or jumps out at you as you look back at these 8.5 years?
The relationships that were built with the students, relationships that were built with staff and the community. And it's very hard to say if there was a grade level interaction I especially enjoyed, because I did enjoy something about all of them. Some grade levels brought challenges, but there was always positive. And, go to the elementary school, get to read a book. Everybody loves when you're sitting there doing that. In middle school, we start doing some education, and I built a lot of good connections doing that with students. And, here at the high school, the same thing that continues. And just being a face here that has moved out into the community because of my interactions with students here. That's really what sticks with me and is going to stay with me for a long time.
Well, we appreciate that. For those who don't know, Brian has done everything from, reading books in the elementary rooms to internet safety at the middle school to a regular in our financial literacy course, talking about, I can go on and on with the different things that he's done. He's helped coach our unified basketball program, certainly has had a wide-ranging impact on the district. Dan, can you tell our listeners a little bit about your background as they get to know you? What do you come to Averill Park with? What type of experiences?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been a police officer and now deputy since 2008. So I've got 18 years on. I did 16 prior with the city of Waterville. When I was there for a couple of years, I was an alternative school resource officer there, worked with the schools, not on a full-term basis, but I was in quite often where I essentially got a feeler for what this job is going to entail. I've worked with juveniles in the past in Waterville. I was our lead juvenile officer over there. A lot of new changes to the laws throughout my career, and it's stuff that's important just to make sure that, not only are we doing our job correctly? But just to make sure that, juveniles know what our role is and how we can help them. And during my transition here to Rensselaer County, this has been a job that I've, looked forward to maybe one day getting it. And luckily enough, it's happened a little sooner than I anticipated. Obviously with the promotion of Sergeant Nikles. It's something I'm eager to get into. And I think with my experience that I've had in the past, being in law enforcement for such a long time now, I think I'm going to be able to bring a lot here and, focus more with the kids, more than I've ever been able to, and help them develop into good people.
Excellent. Thank you. I know from the interview process, you do have quite an extensive background working with students, children of this age, and that certainly I think will be a benefit. Brian, you talked already about the importance of relationships in the SRO role. What, in your mind, does a strong school resource officer-student relationship look like? Like, what are some of the things that have worked well for you in terms of building those relationships and establishing those, and what do they look like on a regular basis?
I think just like any relationship, each one can be significantly different. I found being open-minded, listening to a student, to a kid, being able to come down to their level and of understanding really helped build those relationships. Being present when you're talking to them, being available to have the conversation and block out other distractions so they know that they're being heard really help build relationships. Yeah, and you've been able to do a great job at that. A whole variety of experiences like we've talked about. You're involved in some fun stuff, and you're obviously involved in some not so fun stuff and some crisis and emergency situations where you'll be able to, I think, use those relationships you've established to help de-escalate, situations and just make things better for everyone, which has been fantastic. And if I may add, some of those relationships were built in those emergency situations. And some of the students that I would still have contact with 9 years later were from those situations. And, we still make contact, we still email. That's where the relationships build from. Well, certainly become a trusted adult for many of our students. There's no two ways about that. And it's been a huge benefit to us. So Dan, kind of thinking about it from your end and hearing a little bit about what Brian has done and what you know about the role, is there anything that you're hoping to carry forward while making the role your own? Like, kind of, what are your thoughts around that? I know we've talked about just follow the blueprint for now. Things are running pretty good here. So,
right.
Like, what's some of the things that you would like to kind of continue? Is there anything that in your mind you could see yourself adding or bringing from your own experiences?
Well, I think I'm stepping into a role from my predecessor here, who's really got this school on the right track, as far as the communication levels between, law enforcement and students, and kind of opening that door for, make students feel that safe, make them feel like we're very approachable. That's a real big thing that I'd like to carry on is that I want that door to be open. I want people to say, hey, I can come talk to them. I'm having this issue. Is there something that they can help me out with? I think, Sergeant Nikles, he's already demonstrated that a lot over the years. Just purely, I can see me walking through the hallways with him over the last couple of days. The amount of people that say hello to him, that just come up to him, even if it's just the pure, just a hello. It definitely helps open that door to me. So that way, when it's my turn to take over without him in the building, I can help be that person that people see as that safe face. And I hope that I can do it in the same role that he has. From both of your perspectives, is there any assumptions that you think are out there regarding the SRO role that might be misunderstood? Brian, you've obviously been here in this role, and Dan, you've kind of played that role in Waterville in that juvenile capacity. Is there anything out there that you kind of think is misunderstood by people in terms of what the expectation is or what the role is? I think there was always the assumption that
we were here to make arrests and that we were here to discipline. And I feel that assumption has been long past.
Yep.
But that was the assumption when I walked in 9 years ago. With a new face coming in, that assumption could very easily come back until they understand that it's the same role, just a different individual in the role. So.
Yeah, and I agree with them on that. That's definitely the thought. So while I was in Waterville, I will touch on that, is the program went away for a bit over there and came back. And when it came back, that's when I was in that alternative role over there. And I know when we first stepped back into the building over there, it was the same thing. People kind of had that assumption of, they're putting these guys in here because the school's getting out of hand a little bit. They're there to be the guys who are going to come in and arrest kids and get them out of there, when that was never the intention. The intention's always is you got to build that relationship. And when you do, you build trust, and ultimately you make those kids feel safe. And I think that's the goal. And unfortunately, probably through bad media, it looks like sometimes that we're just there to be the enforcer, the disciplinarian, and that's not the role.
Those are great points. I think you're right. We've worked hard to overcome that, and I think we are, as Brian said, we are definitely past that in many ways. But you always wonder or worry about that coming back. And knowing Dan just a little bit, your philosophy clearly matches Brian's, and I think the department as a whole and ours in terms of what the role really is and what it isn't, more importantly. Yeah, I remember during Brian's interview, he talked a lot about being a proactive presence. Like in this role, you probably have more of an opportunity to do stuff proactively than in your regular type of assignments that you guys would have. For you, Dan, is that something that kind of appealed to you in terms of getting involved at this stage in your career? You've got some experience, you've done some wonderful things. Is that kind of one of the things that made you go, I kind of want to do this, be more on that proactive side and work with kids? Or what attracted you, I guess, to just working in this setting? Right,
absolutely. The proactive side is actually the side that you try to push more and more often in general as in law enforcement. And I think honestly at the school level is such a great opportunity, because you're able to sometimes get out ahead of things. When you develop that communication with kids, you're able to nip some stuff in the bud. Maybe that kid who was a little down about something, whatever, you're able to, turn it around, maybe share some experiences, with them. I think that's the big thing with my experiences is like I've seen so much throughout my career and really every kind of walk of life where I can relate with people. And I think that's a big thing that I hope that I can help influence some kids, to feel better about what we can do for them.
Thank you. Brian, we kind of already asked this, what kind of stands out to you? I'm just curious. You and I have worked closely over the years, and I feel like I can answer this question for you in some ways. Is there a particular, and obviously no names, a particular student or situation that you really look back upon as a spot where you either really made a difference or built a long-term? And I can, again, literally think of multiple names myself, because I know some of the stuff you've done during your workday, but also on your own personal time for our students. Is there anything that you would like to share with the listeners in terms of something that really jumps out from your time?
Obviously, there's been a ton of positive interactions and negative interactions. And negative doesn't mean between me and that person. Maybe that individual was having a negative, moment, and, I was called upon to help that situation. So negative doesn't necessarily mean between me and the student, but there's been, I get a birthday wish from probably 50 former students every year on Facebook. I get, I have a student from probably graduated my second year here, pulls his car over every time he sees me to try and get me to pull over and chat with me. Those all came from interactions that started at the school, whether it was a disciplinary thing that they had to pull me in on to be a part of, and not discipline like me getting them in trouble, but me being the person that they could go to before they get into trouble, and build that mentoring part of this program. And I get that almost on a regular basis. I had a former student having a unfortunate mental health crisis years after graduating, and me and my wife drove his car back to the house so he could get his treatment. And that was just because we bumped into him at a gas station. So the relationships that were built here have become much farther and have gone, out into the community much more than I ever thought this role would. So
it never stops.
No, and really the job does never stop. And but those are some of the good, some of the, let's say, negative things. I built a very strong relationship early on with a certain group of students, and I go see them almost every weekend doing some type of athletic activity that they do outside. So the relationships aren't just, they're not just in the moment of being in the school. I've actually built friendships. We go out to lunch. We spend time together. They know my family. I have one student, I'll say his name, Mario. He calls probably 6 times a week. And we talk, and he knows my kids, and we do dance parties on FaceTime, and it's a good time. So that'll never end.
Right. Special moments, and you really have had a connection again with such a variety of kids here. It's been phenomenal. What advice would you give Dan as he steps into this role?
Just be open-minded with the students and the staff. Don't expect that day one it's going to be easy. It becomes an easy job once students get to know you. Take the foundation and then make this program yours, and just enjoy your time here, because it's a great time.
Good advice. Yeah. Good advice. Dan, what about from your end, as people get to know you, is there something that our students might be surprised to learn about you? Is there something that they would not know or guess?
Well, I will it's probably a good curveball to a lot of people, is sometimes I will say this, through my time as being, in law enforcement, is sometimes you get people that look at you like maybe you were entitled or, given more opportunities than others. And, my big thing that I like to show is I've had some hardships myself, and I've overcome. I was a very young father. I was 18 years old. I was a senior in high school when I became a father. For everything I had to do to overcome being such a young father, have to be an adult and be your kid at the same time. And I was quite the baseball player when I was younger. I had a scholarship and played in college, trying to balance everything. A lot of people don't see that for where I've ended up. And even just where my son is now, my son is very successful. A lot of people that were in my situation have had it rough. It's a very tough first step to overcome, kind of going into adulthood. And my biggest thing that I like to share that with people is, just because life throws you that curve, or you have something tough come in front of you, is that, we keep our head up. We want to move forward. Don't let one thing bring you down. Find the good in it. Find yourself and be a good person.
That's fantastic. Thank you for sharing that. That's great information. Brian, I guess the last question I have is for our families listening, anything they need to know about the transition? I know we've worked with you and the department, and I think we have a great plan. Anything that kind of sticks out at you?
I think there might be some questions from students and staff maybe, but I think the transition is going to be a very smooth transition. Spending the last couple of days with Dan, we've walked around. He's really just seems like he's going to fit right in, where I'm leaving off. And I think it's going to be a smooth transition. But there's always the ability for people to contact me. Dan's going to reach out to me when he has questions or anything that he's thinking about, and I'm going to be there to share whatever I can with him and the school community.
That's wonderful. Thank you both for joining the podcast. I think it's a great opportunity for our community to get to know you, Dan, a little bit, and Brian. It's a great opportunity for us to kind of wrap up your time here. It's been really, really special, and I thank you, personally as well as professionally, for your friendship and the relationship we've had. But for the mark you've made on Averill Park. When we started, there was no SRO program. There was no model. There was no. We didn't have a book to follow in terms of how we wanted this to look, but I think we were on the same page in terms of where we wanted to see this go, and you just took it and ran with it and kept going. So thank you so much for your work here, and I know we will stay in touch, and you'll still be part of Averill Park for sure, whether you want to try and get away or not. I know we're not going to let you. So
no, thank you very much.
And I'm excited to be here, and I look forward to getting to meet all the students, faculty, staff, and all the families here in Averill Park.
All right, gentlemen. Thank you, Deputy Mahar and Sergeant Nikles. Thanks for tuning in. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen. See you next time on Every Student, Every Day.